from San Francisco, show number 799 for Friday the 10th of January. I hope you're getting this okay. We're having some, I don't know if it's because of the fires down in SoCal or what, but I've been having internet connection problems for the first time in memory, actually, in a long, long time anyway. I'm still showing kind of a dodgy internet connection here. I hope it's going okay at your end. Some of you will have seen that we're a little late getting on because I started the show, started the stream, rebooted, and stopped the stream, then came back after rebooting, and it looks like it's okay, but I'm still not showing a great internet connection. I hope it's okay at your end. As if that's not our biggest problem. My biggest problem really is that Julia's not here today. She is still under the weather. As you remember from the Tuesday show, she was not feeling well, so her table is empty today. She is upstairs in the Commodore's suite with a bit of a sniffle. Better today than she was actually yesterday and even perhaps on Tuesday. We wish her obviously very well. I can shout up there, Julia. I'm sure she's watching it on her computer. In the meantime, regards to Peter Taylor, also in New York City, Jonathan Frank in Galveston. Oh, Galveston, Rick Bannerow. Thanks, Rick, for helping out with that last-minute slide. Warren Chaucer in Brisbane in Australia. John Emmett's on. I saw him on, and John, I then rebooted when I saw you were already on. So sorry for that. Streamus interruptus, as they might say. Stingray up in wet gray Seattle. Happy Friday to you, Stingray. Clayton Embley, reading you Lima Charlie, so I guess loud and clear. Blake Middleton in the land of 10,000 frozen lakes in Minnesota. Ed Worley says it looks okay now. Blake Middleton, so far so good. Okay, well, we hope it goes. Your clarity of image is a little pixelated. Seems okay. I'm really seeing on, I without nerding out here, I have stream data on here. We've dropped no frames, but my internet connection is lame. And it's back and forth between good and kind of wimpy. And I'm going to go make a bit of an adjustment to the stream. I don't know what is going on here, but I have not had any problems in a long time. And I don't know if it's related to the fires and servers down there in SoCal. It might somehow be affecting this stream or if somewhere else in the world, but I've dumbed it down a little bit. Hey, Josh Toso says loud and clear. Julia does say hello from upstairs. Ted Ryman's okay in Cape Town. And we will carry on here. Get well, Julia. We miss you. Thanks, Warren Chaucer. That's very kind. Andrew Barkworth in Australia, Oz, and Don Lunaboso across the bridge in Sonoma. Speaking of the fires, let's get on with it. Really ugly news, as you all know, from SoCal. And by the way, I'm going to restart this video. This is the best video I have found of all the videos that are on YouTube. And this from ABC in Australia, summing up the situation, including the Santa Ana winds that have caused, or at least helped inflame the situation that has been caused by probably lack of government preparation and leadership. But we won't get political today. I'll stay out of that. But watch this quick video from ABC News in Australia, which I do think sums up the situation all too well.
California's famed coastline, flattened and charred. The scale of this disaster hard to comprehend.
Pretty devastating. I don't think LA's seen anything like this before.
I hope in the future we can find a way to maybe even better prepare or to prevent this from ever happening again.
So how did an inferno sweep through suburban Los Angeles in the middle of winter? The LA Fire Department says the blaze started here in this residential neighbourhood on the edge of a mountain ridgeline. It quickly spread to this expansive area and eventually new fires broke out in other parts of the city. The fires were fuelled by a dangerous wind event which brought hot hurricane-force gales. Here, a satellite image shows the Santa Ana winds created by the mountainous landscape in California and surrounding states. Air pressure builds in the high grounds of the desert. The wind warms up as it descends the mountains and then speeds up as it passes through narrow canyons. Those gusts fanned flames that firefighters couldn't control.
The fires will not stop while those winds are blowing. Santa Ana means devil wind for good reason.
Another factor, extra dry conditions this year, an excess fuel load in the area.
There's been very little rain at typically the time of the year when there is helpful rain. This is when Southern California gets its needed rain for the entire year during the winter months. It just hasn't happened.
The parched grounds in densely populated areas, a recipe for disaster.
The last 2 winters have been very prolific in terms of rain and mountain snow, and that caused vegetation to green up. And then when it's been dry in the last several months, it all dried out and created a tinderbox.
It's an almost impossible task to contain fires in these conditions. Now emergency services in some parts of the city are running low on an essential resource.
100 fire engines, flowing water. We are gonna stretch our water system.
These fires forcing residents and authorities to redefine disaster season.
Indeed, and we won't have to go into the politics of this and climate change and so on and so forth. I mean, 10,000 years ago, most of North America was covered by an ice sheet. And what is causing this and what could have been done to stop it? Let's don't get into that today. But it's a tragedy. We all have, here in the States, I'm sure, we all have friends and family who are affected one way or another. There's a big strip there on Malibu of houses and restaurants, I think that some of which Larry Ellison, for example, owns, and a simple, my late great-grandmother's sister's son owns a house in Altadena that has been burned to the ground along with many of the other homes in Altadena, to say nothing of Pacific Palisades, where we have a lot of sailing friends who live. So as Steve Groover says, it's so tragic. I hope Big Mike, Howard, and Aaron are okay. I think they're down in Mexico, Steve. I'm not sure. And as Ed Worley is saying, these winds happen every year and often. He grew up there, Ed, in SoCal. So, yeah, it does happen. Santa Ana winds, we're all familiar with them, the dry easterly winds that are so dry. You heard in that video, 1, 2, 3% relative humidity, plus it's windy. There were gusts up to maybe 100 knots at the top of the hills, and across LA County, up high at least. And that, of course, one little flame, one little spark, whether it's caused by power lines, some idiot who's throwing a cigarette out the car window, or who knows what. Tragic situation. We're thinking about you in SoCal, and I hope that's not causing us problems here, besides my, first world problem of having a bit of an internet connection. Problem, apparently, at least so my software is saying here today. Replying to Stingray, what is so sad is that there's still a debate on climate change. Yeah, John, I think the debate is not that there's changing climate, but what's causing it and what can be done about it and at what cost, if anything. So let's don't get into that today. Warren Chaucer in SoCal saying hard to determine where to start to rebuild. And Thierry de Jong, we hope you in SoCal are okay. Several of you have called and asked about John Sangmeister and his restaurant Gladstone's, which is Gladstone's of Long Beach. There is, or was, a restaurant Gladstone's in Santa Monica or in Malibu. I'm not sure which. That restaurant burned. And that may have been some of you saw that report in the news. That is not John Sangmeister's restaurant. He's in Long Beach. He's safe. He's okay. And as Andrew Barkworth is saying, we get lots of fires in Australia, but almost never in winter. That is different. Normally these fires come, the Santa Ana winds at least, that they'll often spark these fires or blow them around, usually come in September, October, fire season. But what's happened has been very dry, as you heard. There's a lot of underbrush that grew up we had 2 years of rain, and so a lot of this stuff grew up, and then the rain has stopped and it's dried out, and now you got a lot of underbrush that has not been cleared away. So ugh, and let's don't get into it here, except to say we're thinking of everybody in SoCal, sailors and otherwise, who have been and are, and probably next week when the winds come back, are probably going to be quite heavily affected again. And as Ed Worley says, the LA region is basically a desert, and it's been a desert, and it's water from NorCal been brought down there. and from the mountains and from Colorado. And that's what allowed SoCal to be so luscious and beautiful over the long years. Sad situation. California wildfires now have killed at least 10. That's the report. And just before we went there, there's yet another fire that has kicked off in Granada, to say nothing of the Palisades and these other couple fires. But this is not going to end anytime soon. And when you've got some of the leadership issues that we do in this state and lack of preparation, you're going to have problems. Estimated losses have doubled since yesterday. Yesterday they were telling us 75 billion, and now it's upwards to and maybe above $135 billion in damages. The spin-off of that with insurance coverages and our own insurance here in California and beyond, whether it's auto or house or anything else, it's just some real mess. And as Luca Craig says, you've all seen these photos and news reports, and some of them look like Hiroshima or Nagasaki, or like Lahaina out in Hawaii, out in Maui from 2 years ago. Okay, let's carry on. And some other news we told you about this going into the Tuesday show, that it was going to be windy. I don't think any of us had any idea it'd be this difficult, but there were ample warnings from the National Weather Service that these Santa Ana winds, these devil winds, were going to spring up out of the east and sweep down through LA County, and they have done so, as you know. Also, since our last show, when we had an AAAA from Alistair Murray, who was out on West Australia's Rottnest Island, we showed you this little happier news, this picture of his granddaughter, Emmy, who found lots of quokkas. And then I showed you this picture of the quokka that Emmy had. And a lot of you said, well, that's a terrible picture. Show us a better picture. So none other than Rick Bannerow sent this one along after the show, which I posted on my Facebook page to acclaim far and wide. You got to put that on the show, Tom. So there is a cute quokka. I've seen these things. I've been out to Rottnest Island back in the 80s, and this picture, courtesy of Rick, these things are not rodents. They're, as Clark Chapin pointed out to us on Tuesday, they are, what'd you call them, Clark? Are they marsupials? Are they whatever they are? They look like little kangaroo rats to me. So that's from the last show. And speaking of Bannerow, he's got this thing, I guess, for fuzzy animals. That is his moose head. Now, those of you in the northeast of this country and maybe beyond will be aware that there is an award for errant race committees. In fact, for the worst race committee error of the season, of the year, is awarded by the YRA of LIS, the Yacht Racing Association of Long Island Sound, awards every fall, every autumn after the season's over, their Moosehead Award. And it's in good spirit, it's in good humor, and they do it at their annual meeting of this YRA, Yacht Racing Association of Long Island Sound, which is all the clubs on Long Island Sound, east, west, north, and south. And they get together, whichever race committee's had the biggest bonehead play gets the Moosehead Award. And apparently some years ago, our Fozy Rick Bannerow won that award. Quick note just to Fozy in Toledo, Ohio, Ken Saban he texted me earlier this morning, and I know he's posted on his Facebook. He's come through some difficult surgery, actually a difficult period. He, a quiet but stalwart friend of Sailing Illustrated, watches the show almost every chance he gets. I hope he's watching it today. He said he would. Best wishes, Ken, from all of us to you for a very speedy recovery from your surgery. Okay, if Julia were here, and she's not, we'd ask her, what are we celebrating today, Julia? I'd give her some clues. And what indeed are we celebrating today? A couple of you talked about it also on Tuesday's show. Quitter's Day is today, January 10th, and this is apparently statistically the day when people's New Year's resolutions start to go in the toilet. after a couple of weeks, not even 10 days, people say, well, maybe I'll work on that next month, or maybe I won't work on that at all. That's why I basically don't make New Year's resolutions. I make resolutions or goals, set goals all year around. Rick Banner, I was back on the previous topic replying to Luca Craig, actually, it's the Moosehead Committee made up of Yacht Racing Association yacht clubs, not the actual Yacht Racing Association of Long Island Sound. Okay, sorry, Rick. Thanks for clarifying that. On Quitters Day, I don't know if John Emmett's been imploring you all to put your resolutions, your New Year's resolutions in the comments, and I haven't seen very many, but yeah, the invention of the ladder stingray. So if you don't make them, I guess you can't be accused of quitting them or not getting them going. And regardless, Quitters Day is held on the second Friday in January. This year it falls today on January 10th. The tradition of setting New Year's resolution began, I had no idea, some 4,000 years ago with the ancient Babylonians. For them, the year did not begin in January, but in mid-March, on the first moon after the spring equinox. The Babylonians, they were sailors. Quitters Day is set aside to recognize those who set New Year goals and fail to achieve them, and to encourage and equip them to try again and ultimately succeed. Research has shown that people quit their resolutions for the year by the second Friday of January, which, as you all know, is today. And so that's what we're celebrating, as well as always celebrating our FOSI, the Friends of Sailing Illustrated, especially those of you who are patrons via patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. And Emmett is still waiting to hear your resolutions, if any, for the year. And with that, maybe that's the end of discussing New Year's resolutions for all of us in this new year 2025. Our 9th year of doing this silly show and silly sailboat show. And I know it's not so silly. It's taken on a life of its own. And Julia upstairs in the Commodore suite watching here at the Beach Street Yacht Club, it's one of her raison d'etres. It's what keeps her going, she says. I went up there and said hi to her this morning, checked on her, stayed away, although I think what she has I gave her last week. And I said, Julia, you really should stay up here, relax. Don't worry about, going through all the machinations to get ready for the show. Oh, I got to come down. I got to do this. I said, no, the more important show is next Tuesday, show number 800. So relax, get ready for that. And I'm sure she will be back with us on Tuesday. Speaking of Tuesday and our show number 800, who would have thought? I never thought we'd get to 500. But it will be our 800th show next Tuesday. And as you probably all know, that will be when we reveal, in fact, we're going to have the vote, of the first ever, the inaugural Sailing Illustrated Person of the Year. We've already recognized the Group of the Year, and that was Yacht Club volunteers, especially race management volunteers. We did that on our New Year's Eve show. But next Tuesday, we are going to, for the first time, crown. We're going to recognize a Person of the Year from your nominations. There have been 6 nominations that came through from you, the FOSI, over the last really month or so. Sir Ben Ainsley, Cole Brower, Pete Burling, Sir Russell Coots, Grant Dalton, and finally, Pinar Koskuner Genk from Turkey. And these people are all nominated. These people are all esteemed and well-deserving winners as Person of the Year, having had a huge influence in our sport. On a positive note, this is not like Time Magazine's Person of the Year, when in the past they've had Hitler or Stalin or some other super crouton who's done something impactful but negative. These are people that have done something impactful for our beloved sport, and huge impact. They are the nominees. They will be pitched on next Tuesday's show. Some of the Super Foes are going to come on by, and the voters, in fact, are going to come on by Zoom, and they're going to pitch these nominees, especially the ones of which they are particularly fond. And who are those people? The Super Fozy, the ones that have been on this show a lot in the past 8 years. Rick Bannerow, Clark Chapin, myself, of course, John Emmett, Christopher Gillingham, Richard Gladwell, Claire Harrington, Andrew McIrvin, Alistair Murray, Andrew Pindar, James Pleasance, Ted Ryman, Hamish Ross, Jody Shields, Gordon Smith, Peter Stevenson, Graham Sweeney, Julia Vedekint, Magnus the Magnificent Wheatley, Ed Worley, and Legia Zhu. They will come on by Zoom. They'll pitch the nominees, or some of them will pitch some of them, some of the nominees. And then they're going to vote live during the show. And it'll be closed voting. We're not going to tell the world who they're voting for, each of them individually, but they will take a ballot. Clark Chapin will be in charge of counting the votes, he being above the fray, and everybody trusts Clark, the engineer, retired engineer at Generous Motors, and he will be the scrutineer, the vote counter. They'll take a ballot, and we'll talk about it. We'll do it right here live and say, okay, we've had the first ballot. And if no one has more than 50% on the first ballot, then the bottom person or people, if there's more than one tied on the bottom, will be eliminated, and then we'll have another ballot. Andrew Barkworth, 800th, might be able to take the Vendée Globe finish live. Indeed, could be. They might be finishing Tuesday or Wednesday. Most people think they will, or Charlie Delon, will finish on Tuesday or Wednesday next week. It's amazing they've gotten around the world this quickly. So that's the 21 Super Fozy, the voters. That's what we're going to do on our 800th show next Tuesday. I sincerely hope you can and will join us Tuesday the 14th at our usual time. And hopefully our internet connection is, well, it's okay, but it's not normally the 4 bars, all green super connection that we normally have. So I don't know what's causing that. Have not had that in a long time. Let me know if any of you are seeing problems at your end. I checked it on my phone while I was rebooting the whole system. See, Martin Knott is watching. Nice to see you on, Martin. First time in a long time. Anna Bergqvist in Sweden is on. Steve Atkins, Manuel Brendan Gomez. Lots of folks. Join us. Chris Higgins, of course. Clay Embley and many others, but I did check it on the phone. We do seem to be intact in one piece. Bannerow is saying, if Julie isn't there, can we have her tot of Buffalo Trace Bourbon Cream? I don't know about that. John Emmett, stream says he is at the family farm, Emberhorn Farm in the UK, and he says the stream is good, so I hope it is for the rest of you as well. Let's start the show with a Bravo Zulu to the winners in New Zealand of the 2024, even though the racing was largely held in 2025, there was no 2024 Worlds. So there was no Worlds in 2024, and there's going to be another one later in 2025. So this is indeed the 2024 Moth Worlds at this esteemed club up north of Auckland, the Manly Sailing Club in Whangaparoa, up in that beautiful part of New Zealand of the North Island, indeed the beautiful part of the world. The Predict Wind International Moth Worlds held there in New Zealand this first week or so of the month, first week or so of the year. And it's been a fabulous event by all accounts. It ended yesterday on the 9th, and it was led by the Kiwis, the young Kiwis, Matthias Coutts, Jakob Pai, and Seb Menzies. Seb ended up 4th, but Matthias and Jakob have led since the pre-worlds. They were on top of the pre-worlds. And again, they have taken the top 2 spots in the worlds. No surprise. That beautiful photo by Richard Gladwell, much appreciated his contributions to today's show. And likewise, Sue Ellen Hurling from Live, Sail, Die has contributed photos and text verbiage here to this report, including this, the final day of the Predict Wind Moth World Championships was unlike any other day the fleet experienced. Oh, the weather's never like this. Yeah, right. How many times have we all heard that? It was the only day with sunshine and a consistent nor'easterly, the perfect way to end the event, which started with the Predict Wind Oceania Championships on the 1st of this month. Yes, this was technically the 2024 World Championships, as no event was held in 2024. In the year 2024, the previous Moth Worlds was at Weymouth by John Emmett in 2023. Remember, he talked about that. And the 2025 Moth Worlds will be held in Lake Garda in Italy later this year. So that from Sue Ellen Hurling, as are any number of these pictures from Live Sail Die, that terrific Live Sail Die. Is it .co.nz? I can't remember. Good website. And here is 19-year-old Matthias Coutts. He's taken out the Predict Win Moth World Championships at his home venue, the Manly Sailing Club, with a crowd of fans and spectators cheering him on from the sidelines. Coutts won the event by 13 points, clearly positioning him as the newest Moth World Champion and only the second Kiwi to win the event, and not his dad. It was Peter Burling, won in Sorrento in 2015, and now Matthias looks set to follow in Pete Burling's footsteps. I wonder what that might mean. Here's the video after he won.
Thank you very much. Yeah, obviously, absolutely stoked. I was pretty nervous on the shore before going out. I was by far the most nervous of any of the days. Kind of got out there, got a bit of a warm up in, which kind of helped me settle down a little bit. Got the first race underway, which Jake did very well. You know, put a lot of pressure on me, and I was sort of feeling a bit under the pump after the first one, but yeah, managed to sail a really good second and third one, and I was super stoked with that. And then, yeah, I mean, conditions were great out there, you know, steady for a change and a bit lighter. So, yeah, it made it great, you know, it was awesome. Super stoked. I've been dreaming of getting into this class, you know, when I saw them back in, like, I don't know, when I was 11 or 10, you know, I saw them ripping around, and it's always been a dream, you know, I've always wanted to get to this stage, but, you know, it's amazing. I'm kind of, you know, lost for words. It's awesome.
Well, that's what John Emmett tells us. The kids watch these kids on the foils, on the moss and otherwise, and they want to go do it. That's the future of the sport. And others keep telling us the same thing. And we'll keep covering it, and we'll see how it goes. And there's a lot more to report from this terrific event, including the women's champion. We told you about her. She'd already won it on Tuesday. We reported this on Tuesday's show that Hattie Rogers from Great Britain was standing, I think, then 37th in the Gold Fleet, the only one to qualify for the Gold Fleet. And she ended up 36th overall in the Gold Fleet, the top woman in the event, therefore the new world champion, the female world champion. And this next picture just, to me, says, you know, if the Chinese are right, that a picture is worth 1,000 words and a video is worth 1,000,000 words. This is a fabulous picture from Sue Ellen Hurling of obviously the prize giving, and it looks like a lot of kids, or young people anyway, having a hell of a lot of fun. And bravo Zulu, therefore, again, to the Manly Sailing Club for all they did to apparently put on a terrific event. Simple, cost-effective. I mean, everything you would expect from that club. I don't know if Russell Coutts is still the Commodore or not, but you've got Harold Bennett, who was the PRO and was running apparently the regatta chair and did a fabulous job. And there is Matthias in the middle with the trophy, having won on the top of the podium. Jacob Pye, whose former training partner and I guess still a mate of his, ended up second. And then this is Otto Henry from Austria, who ended up third. Seb Menzies, the other Kiwi we told you, ended up fourth. On the women's podium, Hattie Rogers, of course, there in the middle from Great Britain. Bravo Zulu again to her. Nicole van der Velden from, obviously a Dutch name, but she apparently is from Spain, was second. And Wakako, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, Wakako Kajimoto, Japanese ethnicity, I suppose, but from New Zealand, was third. So bravo Zulu to them, and thanks again to Sue Ellen Hurling. Oh, Otto is Australian. Well, I read that he was Austrian, Christian Price. So thank you. I'll correct that. Christian Price. It's nice to have her on here, keeping me honest and on the mark. He's Australian. Thank you, Christian. And so we got Kiwis and Aussies leading the way, and they are all juniors. They're all under 23, I think, is the cutoff by under which they designate, or by when they designate youth versus senior. So bravo Zulu to them all there. And if you look at this graphic, you can see that Otto is an Australian, not a Kiwi. Yeah, you can see the white stars. But he was listed as Austrian in the pros somewhere, Christian, which is why I picked that up. But Matthias Jakob, or Jacob, I suppose you'd say, is an Anglo. Otto Henry from the Ulara Sailing Club. Should have picked that up. Thank you. Seb Menzies from Murray's Bay. Another Kiwi in fourth, and then on down Mura Malta. Fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. Riley Gibbs from, he calls St. Francis. He gets funding from St. Francis, but he's really from SoCal, Alamitos Bay. And Harry Price, Christian's beloved son, the Price family. Harry, who was struggling earlier in the regatta, climbed his way to 10th. Bravo Zulu to him, and we told you on Tuesday he'd had some injuries. His knee and then I think it was his shoulder was crook, was not well, and Christian sent that through, and bravo Zulu to him, banged up, but he nonetheless managed to finish 10th overall. So our Fozy Harry Price, bravo Zulu to him. Thanks again, Christian, for that. But bottom line, you got to, like father, like son. Ashore after the regatta, Russell Coots, one of the sport's most credentialed sailors, put Matthias's win into context when he confessed to have never won a world single-handed title. Okay, he won the Finn Olympic gold in '84. He's also a former world youth champion in the laser class, but he didn't count that apparently on his own resume as a world single-handed title. The very proud father was more than happy to be eclipsed by his 19-year-old son, who just won an open world title in arguably the toughest class outside of the 5-ring circus, meaning the Olympics. In that picture and prose courtesy of our Fozy Richard Gladwell. Any questions or comments about all of this terrific sailing, this terrific event in New Zealand, Manly Sailing Club? Steve Gruber says Harry Price injuries are caused by wearing Crocs. Von Trapp singers, the Von Trapp family singers. Matthias was outstanding all week. Christian is saying he must have been. He won by what, 13 points? J. Frederick Bland, Austrian, it's an easy mistake. Ha ha. Well, at least, Boomer Bland, at least I didn't call him a Kiwi or any of the Kiwis Australians. I think that's a much bigger insult, isn't it, to both? Anna Bergqvist in Sweden, they look so much alike, father and son. Yes, they do. And they sound alike. Those of you who know what Russell sounds like, spend any time with him. And I have, among others of you, have spent a lot of time with Russell. And if I closed my eyes, it would be hard to tell they're two voices apart, which is true for myself and my father, even at our relatively advanced ages. Bravo Zulu. I'm going to do my best to get Matthias on the show. Have him talk about this win and what his future plans may be. I wonder if there is a Sail GP future for Matthias somewhere down the road. I wish Julia were here. Excuse me. We could have had Zoomers on today, but it was going to be difficult. By the way, speaking of Zoomers, why do I have that black square here in the studio? That's not a good look. Talk to the director back there behind the doors there in the control room. Come on, director. Don't put any black squares. Put either that up or this up, but not the black square. Christian Price says that he's campaigning. Matthias is campaigning a 49er. I did not know that. John Emmett says for sure there'll be a Sail GP future for him. John, how do you pronounce your name? I've forgotten. Vince. Anyone know from the Moss, was Matthias just faster? Did he go the right way? I mean, he must have done all of that. And he was very well prepared with a Beaker Mackay Moth. Apparently, most of the top teams had Beaker Mackays. Paul Beaker from up near Stingray in Seattle, longtime friend. Did a couple cup campaigns with him as well. Nice to see him doing well with the Moth class as well. Where were we here? Just saying that I'm looking at my internet connection now down here, and it's perfect. It's 4 bars. It's come good. I've dropped 0 frames here. I'm just looking. You can see I've put the stats up here. We've dropped 0 frames. Our total output so far, frames missed due to rendering. It's not the computer. It hit 2 frames missed due to rendering lag, and that's the CPU, and skipped frames due to encoding lag, 0. Out of almost 70,000 frames, we're streaming at 30 frames per second. So no problems here with the computer, no problems here with normally my internet connection, except today. But now it's 4 bars and strong. I may just jazz it up here a bit. We'll go back to the output and push it up, see if that affects anything. Interesting test here to see if that causes any problems for any of you or our connection. But it should improve the quality of our stream, of the video, of the look. Nothing's going to improve the quality of this. That's what happens when you get old. Not even makeup. There's this, I showed Julia this the other day. There's digital makeup. It's amazing. Thanks, Anna Berkvist says the quality is good there. I mean, you can redo your face now with some of these digital tools. It's not just amazing, it's scary. I mean, you can make yourself eyeshadow and lipstick, and the wrinkles and the jowls will go away. And the other thing you can now do, by the way, is you can do voice effects.
And you can sound like that, which is called, I don't know what that's called.
Or you can sound like that. Crutonic.
Or you can sound like you're on a pager or a megaphone. And then you can sound like a
monster. That is, I think, the little monster.
And that is, what is that?
That's the large robot. The large robot. And then that's the little robot. And these are I am your father. John Emmett is saying, I think we should turn all
those off, don't you think? Crutonic. I'm not going to use those. But it's astonishing what is going on digitally. You see, I don't know if you can see in the background, those of you who are photo buffs or video buffs, but in the background of my camera, you see the blurred effect. Bokeh is as John Emmett and the other super photographers would tell you, how the background is blurred. Well, normally you do that with a fast lens with a 1.4 f1.4 lens, or 1.8 or 2.4 even, and that will focus here in the forefront, and then it'll blur the background. That blur, including Clayton Embly's Bourbon Cream blur, is all digital. And there's no ghosting. It's really astonishingly good. Bokeh. Yeah, I think it's spelled with an E, isn't it? J. Frederick Bland, Bokeh. Tom, you're going to need an NVIDIA server AI farm for your digital makeup. Someone has new toys. Well, I'm not using this stuff. I don't even like using these bloody sound effects, which we've got on here. We got music, we got the horn, we got the applause, we got all this stuff. Yeah, Bokeh. Thanks, Rick Banner, who's also a photographer. Depth of field. DOF? I've never seen DOF, Graham Sweeney. Great product placement, Clayton Embly is saying. Okay, let's carry on, shall we, and get to John Emmett's report. Speaking of him, the coach's corner for today with John Emmett. And again, he's down on the farm.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. I thought it was about time I did a talk about walking and talking. Now, you might not be able to see in the background, we have Imberhorn School, which is where I used to go to school. I think I've probably told the story many times how I often got told off for being late. However, I was up at 5 a.m. swimming for an hour, followed by a paper round. So I couldn't really have got up any earlier. I just needed to deliver papers quicker. And it's strange, I walk into town now, I still remember my old paper route from all those years ago. But these are little footpaths which are around the farm. And as I said, I think it's very important for mental and physical well-being to be outside in the country. Although, of course, I very much like to be by the coast. And I think I have probably a perfect balance split between the two. And this land, I guess it's probably only a couple of metres, but we donated this also members of the public can have a safe walkway, and actually people going to and from school don't need to go alongside the roads. And I thought that was something really important. The other thing, you see this sort of wild bit along the edge of nearly all the fields, that is to actively encourage wildlife. They like those overgrown areas. We use natural methods wherever we can. And I think sailing as a sport, you know, we are incredibly eco-friendly, or should be. Unfortunately, there's always a bit of sports wash which goes off. But yeah, just to have a little bit of background as we come to the start of the new year and everybody's sort of going back to work and back to normality. So if you haven't done so already, final chance, I guess, let's hear some of those New Year's resolutions. I'm very clear what mine are going to be, and I put them down there first. Inclusivity of sailing. See you later on the show.
Yeah, we should talk too, John, about, I was texting with John early this morning when I first rolled over in bed and checked my DMs, my direct messages, and apparently they're now calling, in fact, they've just done, World Sailing has just put out a request for bids, for offers, a request for bids on what's now going to be called the Inclusivity World Championship, not the Parasailing Championship, but the inclusion. Is that what it is, John? I don't get it. John isn't sure. He's checking on it. We're going to update on all this, but World Sailing's having some problems. They send out the new rules, and they already had to make a change because they screwed up the rules. And now the various countries that have printed their rules books are, what do we do now? And they're going to have to print, something that we're all going to have to stick into our rules books, cut and paste. I don't know. So we'll see. We'll get a report from Clark Chapin on all that. But that's John's report. Thank you, John, for that. And we'll talk some more about the inclusion event that World Sailing is asking for people. And they're asking, I don't know why they've taken so long, and we still haven't seen the committee chairs for this next cycle, this next 4-year cycle out of World Sailing. So I don't know really what's going on there, but one hears there's some problems. By the way, U.S. sailing, I'm not even going to talk about U.S. sailing. Don't get me going on U.S. sailing. We'll talk about their Crutonicism in due course. Leave it at that. John Emmett Sailing, get to the front of the fleet. His regular reportage, for which we are most appreciative. The first World Sailing Inclusion Championships. I mean, we're all included. Why don't they just run an open championship and say the top male, the top female, the top person who's got, is paraplegic, is whatever else is challenged by this, that, or the other thing. I don't know. Inclusivity games. I'll bet the Los Angeles DEI head at the LAFD is about to be available. Yeah, well, that's another issue. You don't know what they want to include, Graham Sweeney is saying. Clark Chapin, the rule book problem, not in the USA, but the new books won't be printed and shipped until mid to late February. The digital version corrected is available now from Apple or Android to download to your phones. J. Frederick Bland, I don't know what that means, an inclusion championship, but it sounds Crutonic to me. A garden gnome class, Alan Law is asking. Oh, my goodness. Shall we check in on the Vendée Globe as they near, at least the leaders, near the finish? Next Tuesday or Wednesday, apparently. This is not day 58. It's now day 62. I don't think I changed that this morning. from, I think that is, well, it's 3 days. It's probably day 61. If memory serves, let's see. Do I have that anywhere else? I'm not sure I do. But it's, I believe it's day 61. Here is the situation. The three leaders closing in on the finish line in France, and that is Charlie Dillon still leading. He's been on and off with Jan Richomme, who's had a bit of a problem with one of his sails. And the latest info is that at 0630 UTC this morning, Jan Richomme told the race management that his J0 headsail, the halyard lock, the hook, had broken and that the sail had fallen into the water. The skipper had to work to bring the sail back on board before realizing that it was torn and unusable. I wonder if he cut it away, cut it loose. I wonder if that's legal. I wonder if that should be permitted or not. This damage comes at a bad time, less than 5 days before the finish, especially when he will have to navigate along the Breton coast to finish in light airs, when you might want that J0. Charlie Dillon on Massif Santé Prévoyance is in first. He's still expected at the finish on Tuesday or Wednesday with Jan between 2 and 12 hours later, or so they are reporting today from the Vendée Globe HQ. What about the rest of the fleet? Well, other than third place Sebastian Simon, who you can see there is just behind the top two, the rest of the fleet is still not only south of the equator, but well south of the equator. And it's been a problematic day for many skippers. They're getting a little long in this late in this race, and they're probably tired, and they've had some wear and tear on their equipment. But after 2 months at sea, it's little surprise that more breakages are emerging in the fleet. And double Vendée Globe winner Michel Desjoyeau's famous precept, quote, "One problem a day in the Vendée Globe," unquote, has certainly rung true today for many of these boats. Jan Richomme, we told you, lost his J0, which could prove crucial for the closing stages of this race. Boris Herrmann lost his J2, the smaller jib, another essential sail, the loss of which could compromise his place in the top 10. For the others, the group led by Sam Goodchild, by the way, who's moved up to fourth on his yacht Vulnerable, is finally benefiting from easier conditions, while the strong depression in the South Atlantic is now history. Here is the video from
So let's just take a look at the weather as we can, where Jin Kun-ju was talking about. He's just coming out of the worst of this weather, but that southerly wind is super cold. And these boats, as they approach Cape Horn, will have another depression before they finish there. Then as we get to the boats that have just rounded Cape Horn, they're looking like they're going to go to the west of the Falklands. This is the group that are trapped between the high pressure zone that's coming and the ice exclusion gate. So they're trying to go as fast as possible. And this little group here with Benjamin Ferry and Giancarlo Pedotti are very likely to catch Alan Rora and Roman Attanasio because they're still stuck battling this high pressure system. And then if we look at these people off Cabo Frio, we've got Sam and Clarice just tackling a low pressure system, and then they're moving into that thundery active cells that we've seen of the other boats. And we see Benjamin Detroit's just outside of that cloud, but he's a long way east and he's struggling in the wind angle to make gains to the north. And we have this compact group, Jeremy Bayou coming out leading that group in fourth place, but they're very tightly clustered, as Nico was saying. He's got everything to go for. And then if we look at the front of the fleet, we've got the animation now, and believe it or not, that animation goes all the way to the finish line in Le Sable d'Olonne. They're through the ridge, and we've got this low pressure front coming towards them that's increasing their time, increasing their speed. And if we see there's a small bubble of high pressure off Spain they have to avoid, and there's a growing bubble of a high pressure system off the finish line. So the race is still on. Now, third place Seb Simon is enjoying being outside the ridge and is in that increasing pressure, and he's on starboard jibe, which is his good foil, and he's really happy.
Thank you, Dee Kafari. And I thought showing that Okay, there's the music's over. I thought showing that what it looked like going forward to when they finish would be very interesting. I haven't played one of those in a while, but I like that. Alan Long is saying that one hears Pip Hair has lost her medallia sponsorship. Oh, that's a shame. Maybe not a huge surprise. Andrew Pindar just checking in. Sorry for being late to enter the starting box. I was out there on the course looking for Andrew McIrvin. He went out for lunch yesterday and was last seen at some unattributed airport heading off to somewhere which would maintain his frequent flyer status with all major airline operators. Between the two Andrews, they do a lot of flying. And Steve Gruber is saying that Boris Herman, was also struck by lightning. I had not heard or read that. I hope that is, if it's, well, I assume it's true. Steve wouldn't say if it weren't. But hopefully it's not only scary, Jonathan Frank, but hopefully he is okay. And Rick Banner is saying that that Pip said that her loss of medallia, she put that out in a video release. She's no doubt looking for additional sponsors because she said, and we ran that video on this show, she badly wants to do it again. Okay, thank you, D. Kafari, for that video. And let's look at the standings. As you all know, Charlie Delon is in first, Yuan is in second. Not unassailable, but probably with a 190-mile gap now between those top two. Charlie is looking pretty comfortable, short of some disaster between where they are now, approaching the Azores, and when they get into the finish in Les Sables d'Olonne middle of next week. Sebastian Simon now 840 miles back. Looks like he's in a solid third because there's a big gap back to Sam Goodchild, who, as we said, has moved up to fourth. So those of you who are Brits and cheering for him will be pleased about that. Jeremy Bayou, constant, perennial, top-nose, hard-nosed sailor, top-notch, hard-nosed, is in a pretty solid fifth. He's being pushed by Paul Mielhot. Boris Herman, I guess, is okay. He's still carrying on. Speed seems pretty good. Thomas Rouillant, Nicholas Lundvin, and then the first woman, the first female, Justine Metro, who's been hanging around 10th most of the regatta and is in 10th indeed today. Shall we look at the next five while we're at it? Clarice Kremer, who's been struggling, she's in 11th. Benjamin Dutro, Samantha Davies, Jean Lacombe is up to 14th. So he's been the old cuss that he is, the oldest guy in the event and a terrific sailor. He's up to 14th, and Alan Rura on Hublot is in 15th. By the way, Clarice said, I can't wait to be in the trade winds. The cold front is very hard to get through. We stumble upon it and then don't feel very efficient. Physically, I'm much better even if I continue to take medication for the back pain she's been writing and putting videos out about which she's been putting videos out. I'm tired. I barely slept for 2 days. I sleep a bit like in the Figaro. On and off. Tough stuff. By the way, Conrad Coleman, the Kiwi, who's been living in Colorado and now living also in France, is in 22nd. Apparently no structural damage. Alan Long McIrvin is probably headed to Key West for the finish of the Lauderdale Key West race that started yesterday. Steve Gruber says Boris is okay. I believe it happened yesterday. Some electronics fried, but able to carry on racing. Okay, all good to hear. All good to hear as we move smartly forward. 1 hour into the show at 1400 here in San Francisco on a Friday. Show 799. Thank you very much for joining us. And our featured event today is coming to us from Macau. And the Day of Survival is the headline. As quarterfinalists decided today on the 10th, it's the 11th there now. What time is it there? It's about 0600 in the morning, I think, on their Saturday. Macau is the dateline here, January 10th. It was an all-action day at the 2025 Macao Match Cup as the 12 teams were put to the test in the final matches of the qualifying round-robin stage to decide which 8 teams would advance to the quarterfinals. GBR's Ian Williams, Pindar by Manuport Logistics, his sponsor, finished the stage with 11 straight wins. This guy is on fire, having won the Worlds and now 11 straight wins in the rounds robin to lead the group into the quarterfinals. Followed by USA's, originally from New Zealand, Gavin Brady with 10 wins, and New Zealand's young Nick Egnott Johnson with 9 wins. So no surprise to see Ian, Gavin, and Nick E.J. up there at the top. And here's some photos. And I think these are Ian Roman photos, courtesy of the WMRT. This is a little touch here, a little contact between Chris Poole and Ian Williams. The umpire's right there on the spot to make the call. There are the 12 teams after the rounds robin, and those top 8, from Ian down to Max Paul, have advanced now, matriculated, as Julia would say, into the quarterfinals. And here is a terrific 4-minute video being hosted by Guess Who?
It is all about survival today at the Macao Match Cup, since it is the final day of the round-robin series. 4 teams will be eliminated, while the top 8 will make to the quarterfinal stage. Who will make the cut? It is also testing conditions on the course area too, with winds gusting up to 20 knots, making the handling of these 528 yachts exciting for the crew. With 8 flights to complete, the matches are tense, but it was Pauline Courtois from France who is fired up through the first flight of the day, winning 2 matches to move on to 6 wins and a certain place in the next round. Britain's Ian Williams begins the day on 8 straight wins and continues his form in a feisty match with the USA's Gavin Brady and inflicts Brady's first defeat of the event.
Obviously a great start, that was critical. He was out tacking us up the first beat, and so we took a different approach. Halfway up the first beat we said, like, let's sail a bit freer, play the shifts, but yeah, managed to stay ahead. So super happy to have won that. That was obviously a very critical race.
Meanwhile, the world's #1 ranked match racer Chris Poole from the USA continues with his struggle to find a winning formula here in Macau. With just 4 wins out of 8, he remains in danger of failing to make the cut. He loses his first match against Nick Egnott Johnson and then faces old adversary Ian Williams. Matches between these two are always exciting, as the pre-start proves again. In the dial-up, Ian attempts to trap Chris, but it backfires and it's a penalty on Williams as the windward boat for not keeping clear. So Paul now has a huge advantage in the match. At the 3rd mark, Williams is still carrying a penalty and blocks Paul from rounding the mark, forcing a dial-up. Ian holds position and Chris drifts sideways, unable to stop the slide in the strong wind as the windward boat. And there's contact, blue flag, and Chris is penalized, which cancels Ian's penalty, so they are all square again, and it's race for the finish. Ian draws on all of his years' experience to fend off Chris's effort to pass downwind, and at the finish, it's a 10th win for Williams and a crisis for Paul.
Doesn't matter. You have to beat everyone to win the event, and we're still getting faster. Like, we haven't felt slow against anyone so far this event. So whoever we get, I'm sure it'll be a good fight, and we'll see what happens.
So the world #1 now has just 1 crucial match left to secure a point and stay in the competition, and he's against Rocco Attali from Italy, the #2 seed at the event, who is on 6 wins and already sure to progress.
Felt it was a must-win, and we had Rocco Attali, and we were able to get a penalty in the pre-start, and then he hit the pin off the line, and we were able to just kind of control him. But Rocco did a really nice job to get around us on the second beat, And then he also tried the same kind of mark trap from Ian, but luckily we took our notes from the previous race's debrief and were able to stay out of getting locked with Rocco and push the game down into the downwind. And then we just looked for our opportunity to set the kite and get around Rocco and get down to the finish.
And the die is cast with the final result, an outstanding 100% win record for Ian Williams, with Gavin Brady on just 1 loss and Nick Ecknock-Johnson on 9 wins. And what a result for women's world number 1, Pauline Couture, in the 4th place. So the over match racing world number 1 Chris Paul survives, and also making the cut are Rocco Attali from Italy, Maxime Mignot from France, and Max Paul from Australia, who secures that coveted 8th place. The 2025 Macao Match Cup now moves into the quarterfinal knockout race tomorrow with similar race conditions as today, and where the first to win 3 matches against their opponent will advance to the semi-finals.
Terrific video. Beautiful job by Lily, by our super Fozy. And if I were here, if Julia were here right now, I'd ask her, did you hear what she said about the die is cast? Remember that going forward. We're going to mention that here. Come back to that. The die is cast today. Okay, so they're going in the quarterfinal. It's Saturday morning down there now, early in the morning. Then they have the quarters today. And then I think it's first to win 3. Then they'll run a semi, some of the semis and the finals, and they'll wrap it up tomorrow. Yeah, I'd like to see Lily racing herself as well. The Squid Games of sailing. But interesting comment, too, by Rick Banner. He's saying, FYI, I have to read these comments, and I have to check and be careful. He's saying that the event sponsor, Chow Tai Fook, is a huge Chinese vertically integrated jewelry business. Okay, interesting. And yes, John Emmett's reminding us that you can watch this live. The WMRT are streaming this live on YouTube and wherever else. And Lily is doing the commentary on that live stream with some crouton who's not very good. She's carrying the whole thing. Our Fozy and John's wife, Ligia, Zhu Ligia in Chinese, Golden Lily, as we know her, and they're doing a great job. AI overview, learn more. The die is cast means that a decision has been made and cannot be changed, signifying that a course of action is now set and irreversible, similar to the idea of throwing dice when the outcome is determined once they are cast. It originates from the Latin phrase alia jacta est, which translates to the die is thrown. Keep that in mind as we go forward. Okay, speaking of which, we are to this day in history. What happened on this day in history? And I'd ask Julie if she were sitting there on the 10th of June, 49 BC. Here, Commodores and ladies and gentlemen, is your first clue. Hey, it's water related. Yacht racing. Hello, Ken Saban. We gave you a little tip of the cap at the top of the show. Wishing you a speedy recovery after your surgery, but I digress. Let's go back. Here is your clue for what happened on this date, 10th of January in 49 BC. Here's another clue. That is the mouth of the river Rubicon in Italia, in Italy. Crossing the Rubicon, Clark Chapin is saying. Is he right? That's a 2008 photo, by the way. That's not from 49 BC. It was the first Governor's Cup. They always come back. Graham makes fun of me, and he says, oh, it must be something to do with the Governor's Cup. No, it wasn't the first Governor's Cup. That was only like 58 years ago, I think. Clark Chapin's got it. There is the Rubicon, by the way. It's a kind of a pissant little river. It's a small river in northeastern Italy, or over on the east side, running into the Adriatic. The Red Sea parted? No. Someone crossed it? Stingray's asking. Yes, someone did cross it. Caesar defeated Pompey? No, not today, but he was about to, J. Frederick Bland is saying. Here's some more clues. There is that die we were talking about. And there is a coin. Keith Richards was born. Gruber always says something like that. There is Caesar coinage from his reign. Julius Caesar, alia jacta est. The die is cast. JC walked on it. No, I don't think so, Graham. My ex-mother-in-law was born, Clay Embley is saying. This is an 1880 illustration by Grafissimo. I don't know who the hell Grafissimo was, but it was on this date, as you probably, most of you history buffs, Clark Chapin, no, Caesar didn't die, Ted Ryman. He was going to die pretty soon after this, though, as it turns out. In 49 BC, Julius Caesar defied the Roman Senate. He was up ruling in Gaul and had been for 10 years quite successfully. And he said, okay, it's time for me to go down and be the dictator and run all of the Roman Empire. And the Senate, the Roman Senate, told him, do not cross the Rubicon. Do not. And that was the border in those days between Gaul and the southern part of the Roman Empire. Uttering, he did cross it, and then he apparently, at least that's the myth, if not the truth, alia jacta est, the die is cast, signaling the start of the Civil War, and later his appointment as Roman dictator for life. This day in history on the 10th of January in 49 BC. So thank you, Lily, for there was no coordination between myself and Lily, nor did I put this segment together after I heard that video. I actually put this segment together last night, and coincidentally, I heard that in her video today. Brilliant, Jonathan Frank. Yes. Now, for extra credit, all of you geography buffs and very bright Fozy, for extra credit, how many other Rubicon rivers are there in the world? Anybody have any idea? We'll see how quickly people are clicking away on their Google or AI or whatever. Great minds think alike. He went looking for Moosehead. You guys. How many other Rubicon rivers are there in the world? Ken Saban. There are at least 6. 37. And here are the 6 that I could come up with, courtesy of Wikipedia. There is a tributary of the river, I don't know how to pronounce that, in Belgium. And there is a river in California that's a tributary of the American River. Never heard of it. I've heard of the American River, but never the Rubicon. There is a Rubicon River in NZL on the South Island. There's a Rubicon River in Tasmania. There's a Rubicon River. The Aussies like the Rubicon. In Victoria, near Alistair Murray, presumably. And one up in Wisconsin, not quite as far north as you are. Those of you in Minnesota, there are at least those 6 that I could find. J. Frederick Bland, a military historian, if ever there was, a graduate of our Naval Academy here in the U.S., as Caesar advances on Rome, Pompey and his allies retreat south, ultimately abandoning Italy for Greece. Caesar defeats Pompey's forces in Spain. Yes, indeed, I read that last night, and then took over. It wasn't very long that he was the dictator for life until he got killed in that big confrontation in the Roman Senate, as you all know. Et tu, Brute. Hope there isn't one flowing out of Florida and Mar-a-Lago. Andrew Pindar. Rubicon rivers are so derivative. Very clever, J. Frederick Bland. There's a Rubicon Jeep on my neighbor's driveway. Is that right? Does Jeep have a Rubicon model? Ken Saban is saying before he goes back to sleeping off during his recovery from surgery, 3 Great Lakes boats, 1 in the Fort Lauderdale race to Key West. Now I'm going back to bed. Okay, Ken, thank you for that factoid. Clark Chapin, the die is cast. Will that be the theme of an upcoming presidential inauguration speech? Asking for a friend. I don't know about that, Clark. as we move smartly forward. Speaking of presidential issues, I thought it was time. We haven't had one in a while. I thought we should have a correct or croutonic. And this one is also water related. And I ask you, correct or croutonic? Should the Gulf of Mexico be renamed the Gulf of America? I'm sure at least those of you in the States have heard about this proposal from the incoming president. That's the thing about dictator for life, Clark says. Should be a short-term appointment, a Rubicon conundrum. Should the, is it correct or croutonic, should the Gulf of Mexico, that's a serious question, be renamed the Gulf of Trump, the Gulf of America? Alan Long says it's asinine. John Emmett, I thought we had finished with that tune in 2024. Do you even have to ask? No, I have to. I think there's a lot of people who think it's a good idea, Clark. I don't know what you think. I have a pretty good idea what Clark would think. Why don't you use the cruise ship baby shark duel? The collective noun for buttocks is an asset of buttocks. I think I can see how that works. It's amazing we give this crazy talk any bandwidth at all. Ed Worley says, no, it's not correct. Is it? What's that mean, Ed? Is it correct or croutonic? Florida man says it should be, Fritz Mueller, who's in Miami, says it should be the Gulf of Florida. There's a good idea. Peter Taylor says it doesn't deserve a response. Bing bong. William Sangmeister says Gulf of America. Let's get it. It is a serious question, Clark. I mean, there's legislation apparently being put forward now. Clayton Embley says yes. Graham Sweeney says, I'd call it the Gulf of Mar-a-Lago. Well, Mar-a-Lago is over on the Atlantic, so I'm not so sure that would be so good. What's with Canada? It's the country I pretend to be from when traveling to Europe, Stingray is saying. If it's in honor of Americo Vespucci, why not? Ed Worley says, croutonic, the Gulf of Moosehead. Okay, I just thought we should have that. We should, have some fun here. It's just to piss off as many people as quickly as possible. Blake Middleton, who's a little further north than Wisconsin, he's in Minneapolis, says it's croutonic. The Gulf of BP oil spill. Okay, I just thought I should be sure you're all awake, stir you up a little bit. Where's Julia? I thought she'd comment. I know she's upstairs in the Commodore suite, not here with me defending. Would she give me a finger wag for this one? I doubt it. Julia, what do you think? Legislation does not mean it's serious. Okay, have we beaten this one to death? Most of you think it should not be renamed. What about the war with Denmark for Greenland? I don't know about that one. We can ask that one on another show. Boomer planned. Why does anyone take these ridiculous ideas seriously? Well, that's what they said about the purchase of Alaska way back when. Okay. I'm teasing all of you. By the way, I thought it was appropriate that that graphic came from none other than Sailing Anarchy. I saw that this morning on Sailing Anarchy and grabbed the graphic. God knows where it came from before it came from Sailing Anarchy, which gets us, after an hour and 20 minutes, gets us to the final leg here. And a couple things coming up. Of course, we've got SailGP coming up. But before we get to SailGP, and just a reminder thereof, Rolex has put out, I said I wouldn't play any more videos from the Rolex Sydney to Hobart yacht race, but another one came out, and it's in honor of the overall winner, not Law Connect, not the first to finish, but of Celestial, who was the winner on corrected time. And this is a fabulous video, so I can't help but play it.
We managed to make really good gains on the first day, but we knew that our best gains would probably be Bass Strait. We had really good conditions for this boat, and also the crew, they were the right guys. That's where we sort of managed to get some really good distance, but it was absolutely nuclear out there. It was so rough, the sea state, so windy. Yeah, just limiting the number of people on deck so we could just keep the boat lit up. Just getting across there was really hard work, and then managing to get down the Tassie coast and around the corner, that was a lot easier when the seas flattened out. We ripped the A3 very soon after the start, and that was like a vital sail, so when that went, that was kind of like a bit disheartening, so we had to kind of reorganise how we were going to approach our route. Because it relied on the J3 a lot. So we just changed that a bit. We also had the J4, which was again a very important sail that blew up as well. So that was another sort of tactical or strategic way around that, where we had a large head sail and a very small head sail, and we had to go between the two. Yeah, really hard work for the crew. They stood up for it, and these guys they're probably the most professional crew that I've ever sailed with, although we have sailed together now for a few years. It's just a great experience being part of it all. Yeah, we're really obviously very, very pleased with it. It's a strong crew. We've been together through, a lot of different sailing, and being able to perform at that level and get to the point where you're able to hold that trophy once more.
Bravo Zulu to Sam Haynes and his crew on Celestial. Sam, of course, the Commodore of the CYCA, the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. Brilliant performance, well done. And here is Leo Takahashi as a Fozy. He will be there. Stingray is saying, yeah, he'll be sailing. Somebody asked the question, who'll be at Sail GP? Speaking of which, that is coming up next weekend, not today and tomorrow. It's Saturday, Sunday in New Zealand. But the 18th and 19th of January in, of course, Auckland, the first time they've actually run it in Auckland instead of Wellington. The Sail GP Season 5. This is the second event after their first event in Dubai. And of course, the Kiwis themselves, Pete Burling's team sits on top of the early leaderboard with Dylan Fletcher's Emirates GBR in second, and Taylor Canfield's surprisingly good performance early on here for the US of A in third. Spain, Australia, Canada, France, Denmark, Germany, Switzerland, Mubadala, Brazil, we featured them on Tuesday's show, and Red Bull, Italy, who I thought would be doing better after that first regatta, or in that first regatta, not doing so well. We'll see how they do next weekend in New Zealand. Season 5 standings there. And next weekend, the race course is right off Wynyard Quarter, right off Viaduct Harbor, right to the east of the bridge, of the Auckland Harbor Bridge, so it's a fabulous setup. Normally the wind blows from, as I said on Tuesday's show, from the right to left, from the east to west here, or the northeast even, and they can swing that course around. You do get the odd, especially in the morning, you get the odd sea breeze from the other. It's actually a sea breeze as well, I believe. You Kiwis can correct me, but from the other direction as well. But to be able to sit here, here's this, and they're building, there's a massive grandstands that's been built here at the end of the Wynyard Quarter. This is the Viaduct Harbor here where the team bases have been for the America's Cup in past cups. Andrew Pindar says he's going to be there in Auckland. Look forward to catching up with any Fozy in town. And is the New Zealand Sail GP being sailed in Barcelona or Jeddah this year? Gordon Smith making a little fun of Grant Dalton. Is it worth going or better to watch on the couch? Luca Craig is asking. Luca, of course, is in Auckland. So we shall see. The question is whether we're going to do a watch party. Let me know what you think in the comments. I haven't decided yet. Talking with Julia, we said we'd decide over this weekend and see what our schedules are, see what you all think, if you'd like us to do a watch party. And that would be Friday night, our time, and Saturday night, our time. The racing will be, of course, Saturday and Sunday in New Zealand, which here in San Francisco is Friday and Saturday, starting, I believe, at 1900. Yes, it's three-hour time. It's 1600 down there on Saturday, which is 1900 Friday evening here this time of year, 19 to 20:30. That might be fun. Clay Embley is saying. If any of the rest of you have an opinion, want to tune in if we do it. Otherwise, we can all watch it and then comment on next Tuesday's show. Show number 800. On the following week's Tuesday's show. So it's not this weekend. It's not tonight and tomorrow, our time. It is a week today on the, whatever our Friday is, the 17th of January. We have in the D block here, we have one funny, only one funny. I think I exhausted all of you and all the funnies last Tuesday on Tuesday's show. So a very simple one. And a bunch of you sent this to me and I resisted running it. I didn't know if it was all that funny or not. And it's by way of a caption contest, but the caption that came with it is, quote, the Monopoly, the sailing version of Monopoly, where everyone goes bankrupt. I guess that's funny, but our sport, as you all know, yeah, it can be expensive, but there's inexpensive ways of doing it as well. And certainly we should celebrate the fact that we have a lot of affluent and smart people, and I'm not ever sure what the cause and effect is of being affluent and smart, but or lucky, as my dad would say. And the game where everyone goes bankrupt. I don't know. That's the only funny today. I'm not feeling very funny when I was putting this show together because of what's going on in SoCal. We started the show with that. We'll end it just with, we've got all of you down there. Hopefully this thing, it's not going to get any better. Might get a little better as the wind has died down. They can use the planes and dump water, but the wind's going to come back up apparently next week. Hopefully it's nowhere near as bad as it was earlier this week. And we shall see. I agree, John Emmett. We need to change the perception of our sport, and things like this don't really help, which is why I was a little reluctant to run it. But it is out there, and gosh, I don't know how many of you sent that to me. Some of you in disgust, and some of you thought it was funny, and some of you probably both. Okay, if Julia were here, we'd say we're to the finish line. And we'd implore you all to like, follow, and share, and tell you that comments are welcome, even in replay. And we'd thank all of you who do support us, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. If you want to give us a few bucks or more per month to help keep us on the air, we appreciate all of your support, even those of you who come on here, especially those of you who like, follow, and share. Click those buttons because it does help the algorithm. A $500 Great British Pound Ilka will get you on the water, indeed. Tom could have used one of my more classy cartoons. Well, I used one last week, Gordon, on last show, actually, on Tuesday. I used some more. Clay Embley saying that, indeed, my first boat, a Sunfish, was free, and I raced it for 10 years with pennies spent per year. Exactly. How fast do you want to go is directly proportional to the money you have to spend. I'm good with going slow. Well, I think there's also some classes where you don't have to spend much money to go fast. Jonathan Frank, Clark Chapin, well, if the marquee events involve super expensive boats, what does that do for the perception of the sport? And Clark's been saying how expensive those moths are to buy, and the beaker moth and compete. Yeah, they are a bit expensive at that. Okay, that wraps it up. We want to say thanks, as always, to those of you who give us audio, video, and images for today's show. And I like to ask Julia if she has any final thoughts, and I'll sub in any of you have any final thoughts to stick them in the chat now. And if not, hold your peace, at least until next Tuesday's show. In small boats, it's hard to beat talent, Clay Embley is saying. Yeah, talent can overcome money. You got to have a good suit of sails, for sure. You got to keep your bottom clean and your foils clean and smooth. But other than that, get well soon, Julia. That's a good final thought from Graham Sweeney. Thank you, Graham. Thank you for that. And thank you to all of you for joining us for our 799th show. Hard to believe. We'll be back at it on Tuesday, same time, same channel. In the meantime, we hope you have a great weekend, or rest of the weekend if you're down under. Go sailing. Sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.